Okay, another little talk. I watched a video yesterday, and it was a guy talking about matching the hatch for big bass. I'll start out just by saying I'm not down with that because how can you do that? I mean, you go to a lake, you don't know what the hatch is unless you actually see them feeding on something, and you don't see big bass busting on fish all that often. Their big bass are opportunists, they're predators, and they're kind of lazy by nature. They're not gonna go a long ways to get a meal unless it's worth it. So my best advice for catching big bass is just get you some big lures and go after it. I mean, that's pretty much what it's all about. I mean, big lures will make a bass get stupid. I mean, just stupid. I mean, I've had them swim up and eat a big swim bait literally right under my feet, where I never even had to turn the reel handle to bust them. I've had it happen, God, 3 times this year already. I watched a 6-pounder, 6 something, swim up and eat my glurk. I mean, I watched him swim up behind it, and I couldn't tell if he ate it or not, but I saw him turn away, and I just set the hook just in case. He had it. I had another one pick up or eat this as I was lifting it out of the water. I mean, I've got the video. It's pretty mind-boggling. You see my rod level. You see my bait just about to clear the water. I'm about to pick it straight up, and all of a sudden you see a big white blob behind it, and one that weighs almost 8 pounds just annihilates it right there in front of me. This is a Strike King King Kong, discontinued for, God, probably 20 years. But for the last year, it has been incredible for me. I caught a 9.6 and a 8.3, I think, the same day, and lost another huge one on it. So it's awesome. You can't buy them anymore unless you find one on eBay and they're charging an arm and a leg for them. But this is awesome. It's 8 inches long. It's got 4 segments. It's got a little lip that it'll dive about 2 feet deep. You can use it as a weight bait if you want to. I've done that before and had some monsters come and plow it right on the surface. Matching the hatch, to me, basically only applies to fish that are actively busting shad. Then that can be crucial. I recall the biggest instance I call is on Wise. God, probably been 20 years ago. But used to, just a little 1/4 ounce rattle trap was death over there on schoolers. Just throw it in there, you're gonna get bit. But then one year, all of a sudden, I started seeing schooling fish, and they would not touch this thing. And I couldn't figure out what was going on, because I mean, I knew they were pretty decent sized fish because I could see the boils, and they wouldn't touch it. And I mean, I had to figure out what it was. So I grabbed this little rattling rap. Not a whole lot of difference, but evidently it was difference enough, because they were smacking this thing on every cast. This went on for like 2 years, and I would always keep trying. I said, okay, it can't be that critical. And so when I was getting them on this, I'd take this and try to throw it in there again just to see, and they would never touch it. This went on for 2 years. So yeah, size, matching the hatch can be critical, but I think it applies more to actively schooling feeding fish than any other kind. So having said that, back to the big bass thing, you can't go wrong with big lures. You're not going to catch a lot of fish, but you will catch some 2.5, 3 pound fish on this thing. I've done it. I've already caught 3 or 4 this year, under 4, between 3 and 4 on this. So, you know, and I've caught them as small as 2.5 pounds on it. I mean, that's the exception rather than the rule, but you know, they'll get big-eyed every now and then and hit it. And sometimes, I don't know, and I still don't know to this day. I have a theory. I threw that big this at a place one day, threw it 2 or 3 times, didn't get anything. Picked up my glurk. My glurk is it's a hybrid that it's between like a glide bait and a jerkbait. And I threw it at there, and I've caught some donkeys on that thing. Caught a 10.3 on it. and I threw it in there and didn't get anything. And I just wanted to make sure, so I picked up this and threw it in there and caught a 9.2. Was it that he didn't want the two big baits and wanted something little? I don't think so. I think that this gets down 6, 7, 8 feet. I just think it got down close enough. The fish wasn't actively feeding. It was just in a negative mood. But I think I got this thing down right in its face, and all it had to do was just flare its gills and suck it in, and it ate it. So I'm still going to go with the big baits when I'm hunting for big fish. I'm going to throw a crankbait for big fish. Instead of throwing this, I'm going to throw this. This is Henrietta. Catch 'em Caro Henrietta. I think a guy in California makes them. I got them from Tackle Warehouse. They're about 25 bucks, 20, 25, something like that. They make this one, and they make a deeper diving version. Okay, let's see. Let me get my notes. Okay, schoolers. Back to a big bass not chasing food. I think that in the cooler weather, this happened to me in March a couple of years ago. Out in the middle of the lake, 20, 25 feet of water, there were fish out there running shad. And the shad were about that long. And so I was catching them. I was just taking a little crankbait and just winding it real slow, throwing it to boils or whatever, some blind casting sometimes, and catching them 2.5, 3.5 pounds. And lo and behold, out there in the middle of nowhere, I got a 5.10 and a 6.13, I think it was. But to me, that is way the exception more than the rule. I don't think you're going to find them out there in open, deep water in the hot weather. I just don't think it's going to happen. If you do, I think it's not anything you want to hang your hat on or try to duplicate. I think you need to go with what works. Spinnerbaits for big bass. This is I love this thing. I've got over 400 big bass, over 5 pounds on these big spinnerbaits with these big willow leaf number 7 blades. I also use a number 8 Colorado. I'll use that sometimes. And I'll switch off, and that's the thing. Color. People make such a big deal out of color. There's like 80 colors of rattle traps. That's the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. It's just beyond outrageous. This is my color schemes. Something that looks white shad, something like that, or something that's really bright and gaudy. Other than that, you're making too big a deal out of it. And while I'm on the subject, custom painted lures, wow, that's just, don't even want to go there. And the swim baits that cost $100, $200, $300, $400, $500. Oh, Jesus Christ, that's just totally insane. I mean, I've never given more than $30 for one of these. And for the last year, this thing has been death on big fish. I've never given more than $30 for a lure in my life. But like I say, for the last year, this thing has been death, and for the last 20 on and off, it's been great. And it's time for a break. I mean, you know, I know those big expensive baits will catch fish. Why wouldn't they? But the point is, if you think you got to pay that much for them, you're wrong. Put it that way. If you want to, fine, go ahead. I'm sure somebody can use the money, but it ain't got to be crazy expensive to catch fish. You can also use big topwaters, big musky jitterbug. Well, that only weighs an ounce. That's the beautiful thing of that big old thing. It only weighs an ounce. So you can throw it. You don't have to have anything special. You don't have to have a swim bait rod to throw it. You can throw it on just about anything, and it'll catch some good. But it'll catch small ones too. I know I caught the first 2 fish I caught on this thing when I started playing with it a couple of years ago. Neither one of them weighed over 3 pounds. I finally caught a 4-pounder on it, but I've yet to catch a monster on it. I probably will eventually, but it just hasn't worked out that way. And we're going to flip back to the high-priced swim baits. There's a swim bait around the area. I'm sure everybody's heard of it. Some people actually forked out $40, $50, $60, $70, $80 for one. Well, like I say, if they think they got to, that's fine. I found this thing several years ago. It's called the bullnose shad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 segments. Weighs, I forget how much it weighs, a couple ounces thereabouts. I bought this thing because I like the looks of it, and it came with no hooks, so I got hooks for it. I put some spray paint on it, put some eyes on it, gave it a little just something to just give it that shad look again. And I caught a 9.10 and a 7.2 on this thing the same day, and I have got way less than $10 in it. It's called a bullnose shad. You can find them on the internet. I know a lot of people are going to buy, but you can get them from China now. I found some here locally several years ago, but you can't find them anymore, or I can't. I'm not really looking because I got enough of them. But I think you can buy, you might have to drop down to the 6-inch side, maybe all that's available. But I think you can get 6 of them for $20, $25, something like that. I mean, that's cheap for something that'll catch a 9 and a 7 the same day. I've caught other fish on it too, but it's pretty cool. I mean, that is a crude paint job if there ever was one, but it worked. That's my point about this custom painted stuff. And another little thing about spinnerbaits. This weighs 1.25 ounces. This weighs 2 1/4. A little bit of difference in them. I will not, this is not my choice for a big bass, but if you want to go spot fishing or something like that, it's deadly on spots. And the only bad thing about it is this wire is 0.45 and it's got the twist eye. Great, strong, durable, lasts long. It's rare I ever get one straightened out. This thing right here, you catch some fish on it, it'll straighten out almost horizontal, and you bend it a few times and it's going to break right there. And that's just how it is. Let me see what else I got going on right here. Let me check my notes. Big fish. A lot of people think they don't bunch up. I've seen it happen too many times to say that it won't, because I know it will. It usually happens in spring. It'll be in some kind of staging area. But 2 times that I can readily recall, I pulled up on one spot and I was throwing on. First one weighed 9.7, second one weighed 6.3, next one weighed 8. Couldn't get any more bites off of it, so I switched up to my glurk and caught another one that weighed 8.6. All this in less than an hour. So at the end of the day, my best 5 weighed almost 37 pounds. And then I did it again another day, and I was using the glurk that day. And I caught, the first one weighed 9.7, the second one weighed over 7, the other one weighed over 5, and there were like 2 more over 6. It wound up being, again, a 36-pound bag thereabouts. And they were all ganged up. The 9.7 in that first bunch, they were in a spot no bigger than the hood of my truck. And I caught them all in less than an hour. The others, there were 3 piled up on one spot and 2 piled up on another. And then another day I hit a spot and there was just a whole swarm of big ones on it. I mean, I think I had 6 over 6 pounds that day. And I caught them on a variety. I caught them on the King Kong, I caught them on this, I caught them on my glurk. They were swinging and missing and swatting at it, and every now and then they get it. I mean, it was, I don't think I've ever seen that many big bass piled up in a spot like that before. And the bad thing about it is, I've never seen it like that again in that spot. It's just one of them deals. I was at the right place at the right time, and I was using the right lures. So, but again, big bass, if you're gonna go after big bass, you gotta get your head straight. You're not gonna catch a bunch of fish. Throw some big baits. You know, if you wanna just do it in spurts, you know, take a big bait and throw it for an hour or so, do it. And then if you wanna switch off and try to catch some numbers, you can do that too. No law says you can't do both. But if you come to a really, really, really good looking, awesome looking place, take a big bait and just beat the crap out of it. And so often, your first 1 or 2 casts are gonna be the one that gets nailed. Because they're up shallow like that a lot of times for a reason. They're looking for something to eat, and especially in the spring, good Lord. Like I said, I think the first, when I did that podcast with Danny, at the time I had fished, damn, I don't want to get this wrong, but I think I had fished 11 times, and I had caught already 17 fish over 5 pounds. And I had multiples. I had one day I had 4 that weighed over 25. Another day I had a couple of 7s and a 5, and another day I had a 8 and a 9 and lost a monster. It was insane. But springtime is the best time. But I have got bites on these big baits in July and August. It just, you know, it all just depends. I mean, granted, I've got some good places to fish, and if you fish long enough and do your homework, you'll find some too. But that's what it's all about. Let's see if I got anything else. And I can't read my own writing. Oh yeah, big worms. Don't be afraid to throw a 12-inch worm too. 12-inch old monster. I've caught some donkeys on it. I had another place where I threw my big swim bait, threw something else, got nothing. Would step down just a little bit deeper with a 12-inch old monster, and caught one that weighed, I think it was 8.4. So sometimes you got to get down, slow down a little bit, because even with a big bait, sometimes they won't chase it. You know, it's just so, fishing is just such a fluid situation. I mean, it can change so dramatically from 1 hour to the next, or from the morning to the afternoon. Some places I'd rather go fish in the summertime. I'd rather go fish them in the afternoons. I think it stirs them up more. I think the wind gets to blow and starts stirring things around. I think if there's vegetation in the water, I think the photosynthesis puts a little more oxygen in the water, makes them a little more active. I mean, it's just, you know, fishing is just such. I'm not going to say complicated, because fishing itself is pretty simple. Figuring out the rest of it, that can be kind of complicated. The weather, the water temp, the water, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that just comes with experience. And you ain't going to get it all in a day. Of course, you know, who knows, 5 years from now, they're probably going to invent a damn lure that you just tie it on your lure and throw it out there in the water, and he'll just go find a big fish and hook it for you, and all you got to do is reel it in. I mean, this stuff now, this video game fishing, it's just kind of sad. It's taken so much of the skill out of it, because the hardest part of catching fish is finding the fish to catch, and when that takes all that out of it for you. I mean, granted, you're going to be spending a lot of time fishing for fish you can't catch, but you know, that's your problem, because I'm going to do it. Anyway, I think that was everything I wanted to cover. Yeah. Oh, I said, if you've got a good spot, a really good spot, don't be afraid to fish it multiple times during the day, because I've had that happen. And the day I caught the 9.7 and all those others, I think it was the 3rd or 4th time I fished that spot that day and got nothing. Last time I hit it, pay dirt. So fishing is kind of like life in one respect. It's all about timing, being at the right place at the right time. Yeah, I think that's it. So take it for what it's worth.